Discover your inner goddess and live up to your highest value and most abundant potential. Welcome to Grateful Goddesses, a podcast that empowers you to unleash your inner goddess and take the leap of faith to live your best life. Your guide, Karen Pulver, joins her fellow goddesses in soulful conversations about gratitude, personal growth, authentic living, and a bevy of topics affecting women today. Let's start the show with your host, Karen Pulver.
Elaine Williams moved from Texas to New York City to pursue musical theater and accidentally became a stand-up comedian and motivational speaker. Elaine Williams is an award-winning comedian, speaker, and performance coach with credits like Saturday Night Live, America's Got Talent, HBO, ABC, NBC, Fox TV, been featured in the New York Times, Hay House Radio, and the Huffington Post. Elaine's clients have gone from never doing video or speaking live to having their own YouTube channels, doing international book tours, and speaking for NASA. Elaine loves to help women go from squeaking to speaking with conviction. Elaine combines her Debbie Ford JFK University coaching certifications with her 30-plus years of performing professionally in theater, film, TV, voiceover, radio, and stand-up comedy to transform her clients into captivating speakers. Elaine has spoken on college campuses across the U.S. Recent colleges include Kent State, Notre Dame, UT Austin, sunny Empire State, and U of Wisconsin, Green Bay. Her TV pilot, Room for Improvement, about her life as a landlord, comic, and speaker, was a finalist with Lifetime TV and A&E in the New York TV Festival. And Elaine was voted the top up-and-coming comic in the New York Underground Comedy Festival. Her other trainings include leadership training with Landmark Education, EFT training, Meisner acting training, and has been honored for her work with the military and their families at Fort Drum in New York and Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada. She did the New York City Marathon in 4 hours and 40 minutes and raised thousands in charity bike rides for MS. Her degree is a BA in drama from UT Austin with honors. Elaine's the author of 3 books, Stop the Madness, How to Identify Addiction Warning Signs in Your Friends, and What to Do About It. What every student needs to know before they leave for college, how to stay safe and stay smart, and Nothing But Net, creating your customers' wow experience with humor. Welcome, Elaine Williams, to Grateful Goddesses. Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome, Elaine. How are you today?
Well, I'm excited to be with all of these amazing goddesses. Karen, thank you so much for having me. And I'm excited to meet Alyssa and Dina and Rachel. And thanks for having me.
You're here with the OGs today, the originals. We're excited to talk with you. You've got so many hats that you wear. So we're going to dive right in with Alyssa's question.
Hi, Elaine. It's so nice to meet you.
Hi.
Hi. I know you have said that you love to help women go from squeaking to speaking. And I just wanted to delve into that a little bit. What does that mean? And how are women squeaking when they talk to crowds? And why is it so important to help women sort of move past that and go to speaking?
Oh, Alyssa, thank you. Thank you so much for the question. And you're gorgeous. And I love your back. I noticed backdrops.
As are you.
Thank you. I glammed up for you guys. This is not my normal Saturday look, but it was fun. I was like, I'm going to put my falsies on and feel sexy and glamorous today. So, I've been performing my whole life, but like so many women, I think it's scary to own your power. And, it's 2021 and we're just kind of taking a look at the patriarchy. And I know when I get nervous, I can be like, oh my God, hi. And I've just found that so many women, when there's pressure, they go into like the little girl or if they've had a trauma, which who hasn't, right? So I just got to watch one of my old clients. We haven't worked together since COVID because she likes to do one-on-one. But she's brilliant. She's like a designer, a realtor. She does beautiful high-end linens. But she used to always kind of talk like up here. And so we worked on like coming from her body and like deep belly breathing. and giving yourself permission to like let it out. And you know, because I think a lot of women, that can feel so scary. So that's one of the things I work on, and it's very intimate because it's, you know, I'm like, squeeze your vagina. Like, you know, it's all about like owning that core power that we all have. And sometimes we've had to hide it, or for whatever reason, the way we were socialized, the family we grew up in, the bosses we had to deal with, whatever. And so I hope that, you know, so that's one thing I love. And also just nerves, you know, just helping people deep breathing, because that can help you so that you don't go up into the, you can hear a few of my very old speeches where I am a little like Minnie Mouse. So that's what one of the things I help people with.
When I read that quote, I couldn't help but think of the, you know, that Japan Olympics guy who recently said that, you know, women in meetings, they tend to just go on, and that's why women shouldn't be like heading. I mean, he has since resigned, thankfully, but you know, his quote about, he said that it was just, I can't recall the actual quote, but anyway, he made very sexist remarks, and it had to do with women speaking publicly or at meetings. And I thought about that, and I thought, first, horrible, but also, you know, I do agree with you. I think women need to own the room. And when they do, you know, you don't have people thinking like, oh, they're just squeaking and going on droning. And
yeah,
I like that, you know, sort of from your core, like, you know.
Yeah. And it's such a good point. Such a good point, Lisa, because I think we have this crazy double standard. If you're a mother, you're a triple standard. You're supposed to be organic and sexy and beautiful and cook with your blue apron and do all these things and look gorgeous and be, you know, it's like, so if a woman speaks, you know, commanding and with conviction, sometimes she's labeled as a bitch. And so I think that's, you know, there was a video going around with showing how women would say, sorry to interrupt. So sorry to bother you. And it's like, you're doing your job. Like, yes, you can be polite and respectful and like answering the phone. This is Elaine versus hello.
So what I wanted to say was she was practicing. I mean, she'll kill me for saying this, but you know, we practice things. And my comment was lower your voice. Mm-hmm. She was like, hi, I'm here for, and she said, Mom, this is my voice. This is who I am. And I felt badly for telling her to lower her voice. So what if someone says that to you? I don't know if they do, but if they say, I can't lower my voice, this is who I am.
That's a great point. And, you know, and I think for, you know, young women, that can be such a big transition, right? Yeah. Because we're socialized to be pleasing and nice. And even though things have changed, so, you know, I call it vocal authority. So, you know, as maybe you can keep having conversations with her and things like yoga breath.
I also want to show her Margaret Thatcher. She, I don't know if you watched The Crown. I was binge watching. They had a whole bunch of scenes about her improving, lowering, commanding her voice because people were criticizing and saying she was talking in a shrill voice, like she was a housewife, a complaining housewife. So it totally makes sense.
Yes. And I have a video on my YouTube, Captivate the Crowd. It's a 5-minute warm-up that is for speaking that will help you tap into a lower register. And it's free. So Captivate the Crowd on YouTube.
Okay, I'll listen to that.
Well, like, you know what? Just one more point about that. There's that woman who had the blood test and she got all this money.
And I keep thinking about her. Yes,
I forget her name, Elizabeth something, and she wore black turtlenecks so she could be like Steve Jobs. And people interviewed her. People interviewed who knew her, and they were like, she was just like this normal, you know, teenage girl who kind of talked like this. And then, you know, now she has this sort of very affected, yes, well, we're going to revolutionize the world. And I really think that part of that vocal authority that she practiced was one of the reasons she got really smart people to give her a ton of money. And she, you know, she lied and cheated and stole, and I'm sure that's all going to come out, but like really smart people kept investing with her because she had a really good presentation. And I think part of that was that low voice. We elect officials who have lower voices, you know, so.
It's true. Rachel, did you want to add to that?
No, but I just kept thinking about her and how her affected voice. I mean, people talk that it was strange how low she spoke, yet she was incredibly successful and persuaded people and was a leader amongst a lot of men who were leaders.
Yes.
So I find that interesting. But maybe I should be president because I feel like my voice.
You have a fabulous. I'm like, oh, I love your register. Oh,
Love it.
more. I'm like, go.
I'd like to jump into another book that you have called Stop the Madness, How to Identify Addiction Warning Signs in Friends. So personally, I've had to deal with that with a very close friend who passed this year. It was, he was clean for 2 years at least. And, but one night I noticed he came over for dinner and I noticed there was he was really agitated. He had a lot of iced tea and I thought it's just the caffeine. A little bit inside of me was like, something's up. And I asked him and he was like, he got mad at me. He's like, I'm fine. Leave me alone. I'm clean, enough. You're like my mother and you're not my mother. But I didn't know what to do. And now I'm thinking that all along he had been lying. And so I'm so interested in reading that book because it's a disease, addiction, and people will lie to use however they can, even with family. So I first want to know about, how did you even come up with this book? I'm sure it relates to something personal in your journey. So can you share with us about that?
Oh, sure. And thank you for the question. So I worked on this book for 7 years and people were like, Elaine, it's this thick. But I, because I knew I had, and now I realize I have 50 more books in me, but when you don't know who exactly you're writing it for, it's hard. So I finally realized, I'm speaking on college campuses. I should write this geared towards, 20 somethings. And so I made a tip book. And so, we worked on the name because if you've ever dealt with worrying that you might have an addiction, you don't want anyone seeing you reach for that book, right? And so that's why we said how to identify the addiction warning signs in your friends to make it okay. And then when I first brought it out, I said, I hope that this book is on everybody's toilet. And they were like, what are you talking about? Because that's the safe space where you're all alone and you can pick it up and go, am I in a, what am I doing? So that was the intention. And just because I had so much shame, I had 3 addictions, but I've seen what it can do to generations of families. And one of my dreams is to change the conversation around addiction so that it's just everybody has to take math class. Everybody needs to take, because it affects it is affecting everybody in some way, from a friend, a family, a lover, a coworker. Everybody that we know has been affected somehow. It is so, it's like cancer, but cancer has more compassion connected to it. So one of my missions is to keep talking about it because it is so tricky, and I've seen so many brilliant people who they got sober and then they go back out. So I go to meetings a lot because I am scared, but I think it's a healthy fear.
How many years clean are you?
20 and a half.
Wow. Congrats. And how did you get yourself out of that?
Well, how long do you have, Karen? She said I could do my one-woman show. No, I'll try to do the button-down version.
Well, we want to know more about your journey because people who are listening or watching might be struggling with this.
Right.
And might be saying, how can I do this? And if they listen to your story, maybe, it'll help inspire them.
Awesome. Thank you. Right. I always feel like, oh God, I don't want you guys to be bored.
We're not. No, we want to learn from you.
And I want to talk to Dina too, because we haven't gotten to talk yet.
Dina will talk. Don't worry.
We'll talk. Okay. So that's my codependency kicking in, wanting to make sure everybody's,
Not to worry.
Growing up, parents divorced, my father remarried. My mother's a classic narcissist, brilliant lady. She's albino, so she had handicaps. So she had her own pain and trauma. And my dad was her first love, and she didn't really understand why they got divorced. And my dad had met his dental assistant, who became my stepmother, And she had trauma. She was in concentration camps in Yugoslavia in World War II, and then afterwards when they were in communism. So lots of trauma, right? And my dad was always in the shadows of his big brother. So he had a lot of trauma too, I think. But all of this is completely unarticulated, untreated, right? And so then here comes Elaine. I'm like this big personality, this big bright soul who's also super sensitive and super needy. And unfortunately, all three of my parents were dealing with their own stuff. And it was like the perfect storm for me to get really messed up. And I truly believe that they all were doing the best they could, but it was a mess, right? And it's the 70s, so nobody gets divorced. So I was put on my first diet in the first grade. My stepmother used to tell me I was fat. I was never fat. I was just short and curvy, muscular. And I started starving and then binging on the weekends. I would starve during the week and then binge on the weekends in 4th and 5th grade. In 6th grade, I was yo-yo dieting, cabbage soup, Scarsdale, you name it. But obsessed, when you're hungry and you feel deprived, you're obsessed. And I moved in with my dad and my stepmother and my stepbrother when I was 12, and my stepmother began molesting me and my dad's cousin. So all this is happening, and my stepmother's drinking, and then my mother took off to go live in Europe. So, and I get like she had to do that. She was in her own pain, but so a lot is happening, and there's nobody I can talk to, right? And I'm having all this sex, and it's confusing because I don't really like it, but I like the attention, but I feel dirty and ashamed and confused. And I have no control, right? So the only control I have is food. And I started reading, Karen Carpenter had just died from being bulimic. And this is my brain. My brain was, oh my God, she was so skinny. How do I do it? So I started taking laxatives. It never, because this was Dallas in the 80s, and between my family and society, it was all about how you looked, and being fat was not acceptable. And so, yo-yo diets started, by the time I stopped taking laxatives, I had sometimes taken as many as 23. So I'm very lucky to be alive, So meanwhile, I'm growing up, I'm dealing my thing, I'm doing some drugs, but I'm making straight A's, 4.0, president of choir, president of everything. School was my safe, happy place. Then my stepmother came to school and we got in a huge physical fight. That was horrific. Go to college, I'm free, drugs, woo. But I was okay. I was always sort of in control. And then luckily I stopped using laxatives. And I was doing drugs to lose weight, crystal meth. I could go into the whole drunk log, but lots and lots of ecstasy, crystal meth, cocaine. Thank God I was terrified of needles or I would be dead. I'm very clear. So I graduate, I travel, I do theater, blah, 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 blah. So I'm in Austin, Texas. And I'm how you tell yourself, I'll be happy when I get the boyfriend, when I'm doing back-to-back shows, when I have a better job, and so I'm living in beautiful houses for free. I was house sitting in Westlake in Austin. I worked at the best restaurant in the city, and I was doing back-to-back shows. And I was miserable, miserable. And I just, you're right. This is so important for people to hear. So, and I looked like I had it together on the outside, right? My career is coming along in Austin. I knew tons of people. I had a sweet boyfriend. And I was miserable. And this woman I met I got a ticket on the way to an audition to Houston. I go to driving school. If you take the test, if you take the class, you don't get the ticket, or it doesn't go on your record in Texas. I meet this woman. She invites me to this thing. She says, come to the forum. It's about putting the past in your past. And when she said that, I heard this ding in my head. So I go, and these people are happy. They're so happy. And I hate them because they're happy, but I wanted what they had. So I go to my sister's wedding. I'm around my family. They had done more crappy stuff to me. They'd stolen money and lied to me and messed up my credit, all this crazy stuff. So after the wedding, I go to the forum. I have this spiritual awakening. At first, I'm I'm not getting it. It's this 3-day course. On the 3rd day, I really get the leader's like, get up from your chair and go make that call. Get off it with somebody. How many cigarettes are you going to smoke? How many Diet Cokes are you going to drink? This is your life. And I felt like God literally lifted me up and carried me to the payphone. And I'm like sobbing and I'm coming undone, like ugly crying, that really ugly snot, sweat. And I'm like, I'm doing this forgiveness thing. I love you and I forgive you. And they're like, okay. So I go back and this is way before comedy. And I tell everybody at the forum, like, what had just happened. And then I had a spiritual awakening. I sat there shivering and shaking, and I felt black clouds of energy leaving my body. I was sweating. I was hot. I was cold. It was the most intense physical release I'd ever had. And in that moment, I stopped using drugs. I for sure was like, I'm not going to binge and purge anymore. And I knew, I don't know what just happened, but I want more of this, And I'm so grateful to Landmark Education. So I did all their courses, blah, blah, blah. So I have this community of people. I have support for the first time since I was in high school, but I was getting beaten at home. So, it was like support with love. And I have this community of people going, how's your dream? When are you moving to New York? How's your acting career? When are you moving to New York? How can I support you? When are you moving to New York? And when you have a whole community of people, it kind of drives you crazy. But I knew I have to move to New York. That's my dream. And I was terrified. I knew one person. I had this dream that everybody was going to be skinny and perfect, wearing black and super cool and super sophisticated. And here I am like, I'm from Texas. I had all this fear. Of course, not enough, no support. So I had this crazy, crazy, crazy weekend where people are giving me money. There was so much love and support. I couldn't be with it, which makes no sense. But like my whole life, I was searching for love. Right? Like, can't get it from my family. Let me try. Oh, theater. Applause. Oh, yes. Okay. Love, theater. Yes. But my whole life I'm searching, but then it's really hard to let it in because that was dangerous, right? That was my experience. So all this love is coming at me and I cannot handle it. So I took half a Rohypnol. That's, who drugs himself? I took half a Rohypnol. I'm drinking. It was just such an intense weekend. There was so much love. And I'm saying goodbye to people, and I'm so messed up, and I'm in the gutter next to my car on 6th Street in Austin, Texas. And these guys are shining their flashlights, and I'm like, that is so rude. Oh, hi, officer. And they took me home in a cab. They sent me home in a cab, but they should have taken me to jail because I was blotto. And I'm just so grateful that I didn't drive, And unfortunately, there were many times I did when I wasn't that messed up, but I under the influence. So the next day, my roommate's like, you can't do that when you move to New York, Elaine. I'm like, I know. Just let me get my car. So I'm sitting there drinking my last glass of wine, and I just knew, like, something is wrong. But denial is so strong, especially, and this is why I guess I'm really meant to tell this story, because I was highly functioning. I had money in the bank. I saved. I'm moving to New York. I have friends. I have family. People love me in spite of my foibles, And I kept thinking, it's just because I'm moving. It's just because I'm moving. It's just because I'm moving out of state. But I agreed. My boyfriend said, if you don't go to AA, that's it. So I said, okay. And so I went to my first meeting in Austin, and I was like, I don't belong here. Doesn't matter if you're from Yale or jail. I was like, oh, please. So I'm on the plane literally the next day, and I thought I could have a drink. I'm not in Texas. I'm not in New York. I'm not anywhere. It's the plane, right? The plane is like, but I heard this voice that said, you gave your word. You gave your word. And I'm very clear that was God. And that was Landmark training, because left to my own devices, there was just my ego and my denial was so wrapped up in my identity. And Landmark had taught me, honor your word. And because I grew up with addictions and, like so that concept had been drilled into me for 2 years. So I'm so grateful. So I get to New York. I'm like, my friend, I said, I'm not drinking. He goes, okay. So we go to Don't Tell Mamas, and his friend behind the bar had 7 years sobriety. And I go to my next meeting at St. Bartholomew's at Park Avenue and 50th. And that's a whole nother story, but that was my last drink in Austin, Texas. And I'm so grateful. It has been hard, but I am so grateful to the fellowship and the programs and just so many people.
Oh my gosh, that's an incredible story. And thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing that. You have such courage and bravery.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for giving me the opportunity,
So I'll let any of you jump in. I mean, I'm kind of a loss for words. I'm thinking back to my friend of how, functioning. He had everything around him, and you would never, sometimes you think it's just like that drug addict on the corner, but like it can be anyone, and you just don't know.
Yeah. May I add one more thing, and then I want to connect with Dina because I'm codependent.
She's fine. Don't worry.
She's fine. Okay, Elaine. Oh, right. Thank you. I forget. Sometimes people read my bio, and I'm like, who is that? What? But I just wanted to say one more thing about addiction because I feel like, and I talked on college campuses, and I always felt like, yes, it was great, but there was so much more that needed to be done. They bring you in for an hour. And so I would try to do extra workshops whenever I was on campus because I wanted to give. But, most people, unless you've been through it, it's hard to understand. It's, it's kind of like if you ever had a really, really bad stomach ache, you are
hard to relate. Yeah, but I'm sure that your talks even would touch, like in that hour, would touch many.
Yeah. I mean, I'm grateful. I know that I stopped a couple of suicides. I know, I just always felt like there's so much more to do, but I mean, I was, I'll just share this because, I was doing my steps and doing my meetings and, humming along, but I'm very results oriented. And I'm very like AAA personality. So, I remember hitting, I don't know if it was 12 years or 13, it was in 2015. So I guess it's 15 years. And I was just like on the outside again, looks okay. She's going to meetings, she's doing her service, but inside I was complacent, but I had hidden that from myself. And luckily I had a really tough sponsor who was like, I strongly suggest that you come to the international AA. And I was just like, I'm too busy. I'm building a business. I'm too, not too good, but just like, I don't want to spend the money. I don't want to spend the time. And we had this conversation every week I strongly suggest. I was like, fine, So I went begrudgingly. And, I didn't realize I was drifting. You know how you can like show up and go through the motions, but you're not fully engaged? I mean, I think it's a very human thing sometimes, right? So anyway, so I go, there's 70,000 people in Atlanta, 70,000 alcoholics from around the world. And they're so happy. I'm like, can you guys just tone it down a little bit? Like, hi, welcome. I'm like, oh God, Anyway, so I finally get registered. I finally find the room where my sponsor's speaking. Now there's like 30 meetings going on at the same time. There's like meetings for how to do this and meetings for if you want to work on this. Like there's a million meetings. So I finally find this reading. It's the Atlanta Convention Center. And I go, Eden, hi, I made it. I'm registered. Do you need anything? And I turn around and there's like a bunch of people from my home group in Montclair in this meeting, like, I'm like, and I had seen them, but it's a morning meeting. So you're always like, hey, have a great day. And then you run to go do your day. So I'm like, oh my God. They're like, we didn't know you were coming. I'm like, I didn't know you were coming. And if that's not God, like, so what I got from that was I got to reconnect. And even though I got to see my sponsor, because she lived in Alaska, it was God to me. And I kept hearing the message that weekend of people who had hit 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and they were getting complacent and they weren't fully engaged. And they were like, I'm either going to kill myself or pick up again, or I have to go back into rehab or something. And so I'm so grateful that that was my rehab. It was the best money I ever spent on that Atlanta plane ticket and the shared hotel room, you know?
Wow. Yes, Rachel.
Go ahead and make your comment and then I'll ask my question.
I was just going to say, it reminds me of like when Oprah always says, you know, God's going to throw a brick on your head to like wake you up. Like there's so many messages. And then finally it's like, wake up.
Right.
And that happens to a lot of us. Rachel, what did you want to add?
I just wanted to ask, I feel especially during this time of COVID and, you know, there's the word addict and it's kind of like, it like is a word that's siloed and there's not like you don't see the continuum of it. And so I think, you know, speaking for myself, all of us have gotten to a place I do feel complacent, but I also feel like we're also using things to make us feel better.
Yes.
And whether it's having a drink or, you know, marijuana is legal in Illinois,
right.
Or if it's eating or whatever we're doing to soothe ourselves that doesn't feel like it's probably the healthiest thing. But like, where do you go on that spectrum where you're ultimately an addict and you have
That's
a problem?
a really good question.
Oh, that is, I'm like, ding, fabulous question, Rachel. Fabulous question. Yeah. And again, that's why I feel like I hope that we can all have these conversations because, you know, the cool thing is Bill and Bob, they created AA and there have been many, many programs leading up to that. But from AA, there have been like 200 something other programs that have come out of that concept. And, you know, and I mentor young women who are Latina at William Patterson University. And then I sponsor people, you know, I do lots of different things. And I say, look, we all have a shtick. And there's nothing wrong. Like sometimes I need to check out. And my favorite way is on my new spin bike. And I'll like Netflix or watch comedy. And it makes me so happy to move my body and sweat. And I can't wait to go back to hot yoga. But I'm, you know, so, and Janine Roth, who was the first person who talked about eating disorders publicly. She was on Phil Donahue before Phil had white hair. Like, you know, before there was Oprah, there was a sensitive guy and he had white hair, but before he had white hair, he had brown hair. Right? So that tells you how old it is. So she came on and she started talking about how she'd lost the same, you know, millions of pounds up and down. She'd been to India, you know, and I've taken some of her workshops and she talks a lot about mindfulness. And if you look at the American culture, and I love this country in spite of, because of all of our, you know, the good, the bad, the ugly, but this culture was built on boldness, go, frontier, technology, right? Like there's something about the American persona, which leans towards, I would say, addictive qualities are sort of beholden at times, right? And part of our culture, we love to put people up on pedestals and then we love to knock them back down, right? It's this, there's a lot of strange things that happen. And, you know, be strong, just go to Starbucks, get the, you know, turn up your iTunes, go, don't feel. And one of my dreams, I worked with Debbie Ford for 5 years. That's who I got my certifications from as a life coach. And she's passed, unfortunately, but she worked on Oprah. She worked with Deepak Chopra, and she talks about, you know, emotional education. And I know our parents are doing the best job they can. Being a parent now is harder than ever, I think. And who teaches us how to process our negative feelings? Who teaches us how to process, oh, what is that thought? You know, like there's so many tools I think that are needed to navigate our new and fabulous world. And, you know, and like learning to detach, learning to unplug. I think, yeah, a lot of people, especially during COVID, are reaching for alcohol, drugs, food, shopping. I know I have put on a couple of pounds and I don't weigh myself because that's a trigger. And,
but I guess, Rachel, you're asking specifically, when does a person know that it's a problem?
Right. Okay. Yes. Okay. Reel it back in, Elaine. So ideally, if you are willing, if you realize that it is hurting you, and that to me is the hardest challenge about, quote, addiction, right? Because technically, probably 80% of Americans were overeating a little bit because of COVID or stress. So does that make you a food addict? I don't know. Like, we all know the diet industry doesn't work. It's $1 billion industry, and people just usually gain more weight. We know it's lifestyle.
Is it, I'm sorry to interrupt, but is it kind of like, I mean, if it's interfering with your life, with a lot of the things that you're doing daily, or hurting others too, like if you're forgetting things, or you're messing up with appointments, or this, that, the other. But sometimes you don't know if it's hurting you, because you feel like, especially with anorexia, you can just keep looking in the, I have not experienced it myself, but I have someone close to me that has, and I would always say to her, you look great. And she would always say, yeah, okay. And then keep losing weight.
Right.
Until it got,
no, that's such a good question, because here's the tricky part of our brains. As human beings, we can rationalize anything, right? Well, like one of my dear sober sisters who has 30 something years, she started vaping, and this is the power of the program and being vulnerable to me. So she came to our morning meditation meeting, and she was like, I'm such an addict. I picked, I'm realizing I have to stop. I was on a Zoom and I was bending down off camera to vape, when you realize like, this is out of control.
It's affecting your life on a daily.
If you're really present to like, I am totally preoccupied with, I mean, I've done it with men. I love the chase. Oh my God. I love the beginning parts of a new man. And my sponsor would say, that's like a martini with legs, Elaine. They're like,
but it's true. It's true.
It is true.
About sexual addiction too. Like oh
my gosh. And sex is so powerful and so confusing, right?
It's more about like what you can control. Okay. Right. I can control now. Dina is going to ask a question.
You're funny. That was a good callback.
Hi.
Hi.
So I wanted to go back to the life coaching that you do and ask you to talk a little bit about how you work with your clients and getting them to captivate the crowd.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. And it's so nice to see you big. So what I have found, I started developing, I've been a coach my whole life. And then I was, once I got certified in like 2005, I did dating coaching, weight loss coaching, different, kind of trying to find your niche. I wanted to do creativity, but actors don't have any money. So I started helping people with their presentations. And so when I developed Captivate the Crowd, originally I was like, I'm going to be a presentations coach and help people speak to crowds. And, because there's a lot of fear. And Facebook Live was coming out at the same time. And I realized, people are even more afraid of the camera. So I kind of pivoted. So luckily I was teaching on Zoom before COVID came about. But what I have found is we put all of these judgments on ourselves, right? Like, well, I've been speaking my whole life. I should know how to speak. But speaking in your life is very different than speaking with attention, right? Or like, I've done some camera work. Okay, well, have you, and so I create a safe space. So I'm good at being like really warm and kind of goofy and helping people breathe. So like when people go through my program, we do a group warm up, which helps people get out of their heads and into their hearts. And I teach all these like goofy, like, and sometimes they're like, do we have to? I'm like, yes, there's a point. And then what I love, Dina, is there's this safe container where they come and they're like, and I'm like, it's okay, good, okay. And so I really create a safe container, and they come and practice and they get positive feedback. And having that safe container is really amazing, because some people like take off, and then some people takes longer. Everybody has their own process. But to me, that's what it's so much more than video, right? It's like helping people tap into that deep voice, that knowing of like who I am is important and what I have to say is important. and I can make a difference in the world too. So a lot of it is just creating that safe container for people to practice and play and discover.
That's so
Thank you.
important. That's so important.
you.
Alyssa,
Thank
you
you.
have a question about another book that Elaine wrote.
Yeah. So originally, and I was saying to Karen earlier, I was reading just even the titles of your books, and I was like, wow, that seemed like not
All over the place, scattered. Yes.
a little, yes. But now, as I'm hearing you speak, there's the theme is clearly you are helping people through very difficult times in their lives, right? Whether it's through addiction or, helping creative people sort of project and speak and be out there. And then the book I wanted to talk about was, you wrote What Every Student Needs to Know Before Leaving for College. And that is clearly helping young people through a very difficult time, a difficult transition in their lives. So I'm finally, it's like, duh, like light bulb, I'm seeing the connections. But I'm just curious, so what drew you to write this particular book? And tell us a little bit about that.
Awesome. Thank you. And I'm just curious, do you have children?
I do, actually. I have a son who's in college, and then I have a son who just graduated college.
Okay.
Back in May. So I feel like, I taught them how to do their laundry before they went to school.
Right.
We all have kids. Dina's eldest is going to be going to college, so she needs to know this for sure.
Okay.
I will pass that, but still.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm happy to I can send books to you, Karen. I'm happy to. I'm in New York City. I kind of fell into stand-up comedy. I couldn't write. I didn't know what I was doing. And in the beginning, people just kept saying, just talk about your family. So I had this light bulb moment of like, oh, I'm supposed to help people. Oh my God. So that was my big moment in comedy. But so then you're a new comic and you're trying to get on stage and it's really hard. And then you hear about the college market, they have money, the college market. So I got it. I had an agent and I was like, oh, I'm going to do comedy for the college market. And luckily my boyfriend at the time, who was a headliner, said, Elaine, you're going to be going to conferences where you pay to go and you're going to be competing against people who've been on the Tonight Show 10 times. Like, you're not ready. I mean, I was funny and I was cute, but it's like a whole nother, it's like the Olympics, right? But they said, but didn't you have all those addictions? And I was like, yeah. So they said, why don't you be the funny eating disorder girl? And so I was like, okay, I'll try it. And so I came into the market and I had no expectations. I was so nervous. I thought I was going to throw up because even though I'd been performing my whole life, I had never done this talk this way, and the kids, they loved it. Like, it was like, how many people, I don't believe in diets. Like, it was shocking. So I had beginner's luck because I thought, woo, I'm in. So I came in as the eating disorder girl. I booked 15 colleges. I'm like, I'm going to be able to stop waiting tables. And then my agent's like, I'm quitting the business. I can't handle the ups and downs. Good luck. And so then I found another agent, but they didn't get me. So anyway, my topics kept morphing. So they were like, can you talk about drugs and alcohol? And I was like, sure. So I became like the funny addict girl, and it was fine. I was absolutely happy to share anything. And then I finally got a better agent and she said, well, can you talk about your sexual assault? Which honestly, I had worked on it in therapy, but I had not thought about it. And, it's not something you just want to go dwell in, right? So I was like, let me get back to you. So I meditated and I prayed and I thought, you know what? This is not something I really want to do, but if I can save one person, I have to do this. And I really thought that God, the universe, whatever, that I was going to do this. And so I started talking about my assault. And this is before the Me Too movement was so broad. Now, the woman who started it, I'm going blank on her name. She's amazing. She had started this movement, but it was not so mainstream. And it was in a lot of African-American communities, but it wasn't in the mainstream parts of American colleges, to my knowledge. And so, and this was like 2011, 2012, something so around there. So I'm talking about sexual assault, and I really thought, okay, I guess I'm doing this. And people kept saying, oh my God, this is so needed. You need to do this. This is so amazing. This is so amazing. So I thought, okay, I'm committing. I'm committing. So it costs money to write books and to print them. And so I wrote the book because I feel like so many people, we have these kids and it's so hard to be a parent. You do so much, you get them through high school, and now you're just, let me just get them into college, right? It's such a process. Let me just get them in. And what I kept bumping up against, because I was doing the college thing, but I was trying to get into the high schools. I had counselors say, if one parent complains, I'll get fired. I had a dad say, I'm not ready to talk about this with my daughter. I can't do it. I had mothers say, well, that doesn't happen here. That the denial of it, right? And this is, again, before Me Too. So I felt like I was screaming into the wind. So anyway, so I did the book. I did the website. I hired a whole social media team, and I was all in. And then I stopped getting booked. And so I still have the book. I am more than happy to go speak. But after putting about 15 grand into it, I don't have a husband. I'm on my own. And so I thought, okay, God, I thought this is what you wanted me to do, but I'm going to give this to you. So I still have the book. I took the website down, but I still would love to launch this book. I would love to do things with it. And I'm a single entrepreneur. And so I've had to choose, like, I need to make money, but I'm still totally open because these are just conversations that we need to have. And unfortunately, universities and colleges are businesses. Mm-hmm. So their interest is their interest first, and they are not criminal justice specialties. And that's a huge thing that most parents haven't even thought about until, and that the first semester at freshman year, that's when most things happen.
But was your talk, was it comedy or was it serious?
Well, that's a great question. And sometimes, every once in a while, I accidentally offended people. But, if you've got, unless it's a mandatory, to tell 18, 19, 20-year-olds, you have to go to this talk and we're going to talk about sex, like, who would show up, right? And so I always worked with my contacts on the colleges to say, push my comedy, push HBO, America's Got Talent, whatever. So I would start with comedy, and I would talk a little bit about my story, and I would say, okay, look, we're going to talk about some heavy stuff, but I promise we're going to have fun, and we're going to start fun. It's going to get heavy. I'm going to leave fun. Okay. Because, so I try to use comedy, which is challenging because every once in a while people would get offended, but I would say I'm not making fun of anybody else's experience, just mine. And I do not have rape jokes. I have jokes about drinking and alcohol and eating body issues, but I don't have rape jokes, and I don't make fun of anybody else. And I would always set up the context is I'm not here to offend anybody, but I want to pierce through I already know this stuff, and I'm going to be giving you information that could save a life. And so my goal, so that was
it. That sounds like like Alyssa said, everything that you have been through, you are using as a tool to help others, and to even tap into that episode of what happened to you, or I don't know, like
there were a lot. It was a lot, because once you've been molested, you're sort of like beep, beep, beep for the predators.
Right. But it's amazing what you're doing to help others. One of the best marriage couples therapy classes I took was improv.
I know. I love this about you. I think it's so cool, Karen.
Well, I got it. My husband wanted to do stand-up, and I bought him, in order to do stand-up at Second City, you had to first go through improv, all the levels. So I got that for his birthday. And when I gave it to him, he said, well, can you do it with me? And I took acting classes and modeling classes and camera, TV. We had to practice eating a cookie, and like I ate all these cookies. But anyway, I said, sure, I'll do it with you, and actually loved it. And the key concept of improv is the yes and. So if you don't know what that is out there, it's my rule of life. Besides saying yes to a lot of things, just in conversation with people, like, yes, and instead of cutting them off and saying, no, but, wait, right. But, however, so I want to know how that has helped you. I know it's helped me to like not sweat a lot of the small stuff and just to really deal with communicating with people and even on the show. But yes, and how is it?
Oh, thank you for that question. And I think of Tina Fey and some of my comedy heroes.
Yeah.
And it brings me back to my comedy because, just to kind of jump back. So I'm in New York, I'm newly sober, and I'm like trying to figure it out. And I had no, so I'm just trying to like make money and go to class and make up for lost time, right? And so people were like, oh my God, Elaine, can you go take an improv class? Like, I had casting directors saying, you need to, they weren't saying you need to calm down, but they were saying that in other, like, go take an improv class. Why don't you try comedy? So I love yes and, because to me, it's about collaboration. And because I know when I'm positional and like, well, when I get huffy and positional and like defensive about something, then that's pushing the thing or the people away, and I'm holding myself back. And I know it's a natural defense thing, but when I can go, okay, I'm leaning in, yes. And, does it mean I always feel
having someone's back and you know that they have your back, and no matter what you do, like in a scene, you have to support whatever it is that person has decided to do. If someone yells out banana and the person's like a monkey eating a banana, you have to be that tree holding the banana or the fellow monkey. You can't say, what are you doing?
Right.
It just applied. My husband and I, after we would come home from class, we would be so great at it in class, and then we'd have a little argument, and I'd say, what about the yes and? You're supposed to like support me. But I highly recommend. All my kids took classes, and it's just such a great skill, and helps you with active listening.
Yes. And, they're teaching it at MIT and Harvard Business School, because if you think about negotiations, it's about listening and responding. And so many times, and I know I'm still working on my listening, not always the best at it. So many times we're waiting to say, for our turn to speak. So yeah, I love that concept. I think it's fun, and I hope that we can teach it in everywhere.
So tell us, what is your future? What are your future plans? And if people want to connect with you to learn more about how to captivate the crowd, or even to order your books, how can they do that, Elaine?
Oh, well, thank you so much. So I have a really fun Captivate the Crowd confidence checklist on my website, captivatethecrowd.com. So I would say come there, and then if you grab that cool handout, then you will be put on my email list so we can stay in touch. And I don't email all the time. It's, once a week, maybe, depending on what's happening. So that's one way. I have my own podcast called Still Human, and we are building that and learning a lot about having guests and recordings and lighting and all kinds of things. And if you want to get my book on the alcohol, drug, Stop the Madness, that is on Amazon. And if anybody's interested in the what you need to know before you go to college, you can email me at elaine@captivatethecrowd.com. And thank you so much for having me, ladies. It's interesting because, we go through life and stuff happens. And then when my last agent quit the business again, a part of me is like, I just didn't want to go through the whole college conference, because it costs you pay to submit, and then you pay to go, and then you pay for your, it's like a $2,000 investment. So if you don't get booked, it's like you gambled, And so, and I did that. I played that game, but I just thought, I don't want to keep doing it this way. But I love speaking. And so you having me here today, it's been such a gift. Thank you so much, because I realize I do have so much to say, and I feel like it's not even about me, but just like helping people who might be highly functioning addicts, helping addicts who might be thinking of going out. You know, this is the conversation that hopefully we can all have, you know, that it's, you know, common knowledge, like working out, or like, you know, that it doesn't have to have the shame and the stigma.
Absolutely.
You know?
In fact, I said to you, because many times I've seen you on different networking events and you're on your bike as you're watching. And I said, the only thing I say is today, don't be on your bike.
Don't be on your bike, right.
But what I love is that you get on that bike and you keep riding forward. And you're such an amazing, inspirational woman. And you're helping all of our viewers and listeners to tap into their inner deep goddess voice, to speak and show their truth. And we are honored that you're here today. And thank you for joining us on Grateful Goddesses.
Oh, well, thank you all. Thank you, Alyssa and Dina and Rachel. Thank you all, and Karen, of course.
Up next, favorite things. Opening up to happiness and joy.
Welcome, everyone, to Favorite Things with Elaine Williams. My favorite thing, I think I went a little crazy on this episode because it's no joke. Literally 5 seconds ago, it exploded because I'm sitting here squeezing it. It's one of these squeeze balls. And I don't know. It's so funny. It just exploded. But when I get stressed or I go to the doctor's office, especially lately, I've been getting physical therapy down there, and I carry this ball with me and I squeeze it, and it just relieves so much stress. I'm going to have to get a new one because I literally squeeze the life out of it. I wasn't stressed on this interview. I was just having fun squeezing it, but it's kind of fun to do. And it's one of my favorite things, but I'm going to have to get a new one. So Rachel, what did you bring today?
So it's called Deep Blue.
Oh!
And it's kind of like an essential oils and all natural version of a Bengay or something that you put on sore muscles. But I use it a lot for, even if I'm not necessarily sore, but like who doesn't get a sore neck and sore shoulders? And when I'm looking for like a pick-me-up or something, or even before I, let's say, play tennis, because even though I played my whole life, I still get sore from playing, and I'll put it on and I can even feel it when I'm playing, like it's like seeping into the muscle and kind of like burning and working, but I use it every day.
Wow. Love it.
And you know, Rachel, you have shown that before, but I have to say that's okay because it just shows how much you love it. And the whole idea with favorite things is to really look at your life and look at rituals or products, things that help you every day to live a happier, you know, more joyous, comfortable way. Dina, what did you bring today?
So I'm guilty of becoming addicted to TikTok, which is very embarrassing to my 3 children. But in the TikTok obsession is the Trader Joe's world, and these TikTokers telling you what to go buy at Trader Joe's weekly, daily, I don't know. So all of us here, have become obsessed with this, everything but the bagel dip. I'm a big, I love sour cream and onion dip and potato chips. I think this is a little bit healthier because it's made with Greek yogurt. It's delicious. Delicious on like cucumbers, peppers, chips. So love, love, love.
Well, let me just interject with addictions, just our listeners. There are healthy addictions, right, Elaine?
Yes. Right.
Okay. So unless you're smearing that everywhere in your house and you're like waking up to it, then that's not good. But
and the TikTok has a limit, a timer, and once you've gone on for long enough, then it's time to quit.
So you don't just sit and watch TikTok all day. You do limit.
No.
So
okay. We are quarantined, so I do watch it.
You do. Okay, but you're just to make sure. Yes.
Yes.
Isn't there also? Don't they have a
seasoning? We have that too.
I have that.
Like
and they have potato chips now called Everything But the Bagel chips, which I've been to Trader Joe's twice. And they're not back on the shelves. They can't keep them in the stock.
Wow.
Oh, okay.
Love Trader Joe's.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Alyssa, what did you bring today?
I am going to piggyback off of Rachel's rub, and I'm going to show a picture because it was too far away to get the box. So with this, if you could see that, I am obsessed with these Thermacare heat wraps. I don't know if you guys can see that.
They're stickers, right?
So someone that I know, who I used to do Pilates with, I also have like incredible both neck pain and then sometimes low back pain. These are like the greatest things in the world. You just literally peel and stick, and they're like contoured around your neck, or the ones for your back are contoured around your back, and they stay hot for 8 hours. I mean, no joke, they stay hot for 8 hours. I've actually skied with them just for the heat on a really cold day. I mean, they're like body warmers, but the ones for the neck, sometimes I forget I have it on, and it's like 10 hours later and it's still hot, and I love it, and it's incredible. So I think combine that up with the blue rub and you're good. All your aches and pains will go away.
All of these, so far we've all said things that make us like feel really good. Elaine, we can't wait to hear what your favorite thing is.
I love this. Well, first, thank you for all. I want to get a squeezy thing, and I'm going to Trader Joe's, and this is so cool. So can I have two?
Of course.
I found my feather boa because we were singing happy birthday to one of my clients, and I just think, this is so fun. So I just thought, you know what? I think that's one of my favorite things. It's like a glamour thing. But,
Let it go. I hear that every day because I teach preschool and the girls are in costume almost every day. But it's such a good message.
Okay. My friend gave it to me because, you guys get to see like the fun part of me when I'm in telling my fun story. But I have a hard time sometimes letting things go, letting little things go. I get tripped up sometimes with like the little things. And so she sits on my windowsill to remind me to let it go.
It's a very good message. And I sing it, like I said, almost every day with the kids. And then it's like, wait, I should be listening to that.
Isn't that great?
It really is.
I think it's so cool when you get to be a teacher or a parent or mentor, because sometimes we're saying things to them that we absolutely need to hear too, right?
Yeah. So if anyone out there is struggling and you need help, please reach out to a friend, reach out to AA, reach out, Elaine, any type of organization, right, that is on Google, like just to have support, because there are people out there that can help you.
There are, and there's some incredible phone meetings and online meetings that are happening. So, and they're literally like all around the world. And what's cool with virtual right now is you can go to meetings in Paris. You can go to meetings like I met a woman in Israel from a networking meeting from people that we know, and she reached out to me. And she just celebrated 3 months of sobriety. And, I had a tiny bit to do with it, but I'm, reach out. You don't have to be alone.
You are not alone out there. So reach out. People are there for you. We're here to support each other. We're going to let it go today and enjoy the day. Thank you for joining us today on Grateful Goddesses.
Unleashed your inner goddess yet? Thanks for joining us today on Grateful Goddesses. We invite you to visit our website, www.gratefulgoddesses.com, to access today's show notes as well as other helpful resources. Don't forget to leave a review. Until next time, stay strong and empowered to be a grateful goddess.